now we're live.
Are we?
Oh, gotta fix you, Joe. Can't have Joe and Joe without half a Joe.
Hi!
It's friendship, friendship, just the perfect blendship. When other friendships have been forgot, ours will still be hot.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Dig, dig, dig.
Dig, where are we, Joe?
Hang on one second. I'm just trying to get the... There we go.
There we go, yeah.
We were around somewhere.
So here we are.
He's Joe Rayo, Fios 1 News, Hudson Valley.
And he is Joe Cioffi, Fios 1 News, Long Island, and Fios 1 News, New Jersey, or is it New Guernsey?
Either way, and this is the Joe and Joe Weather Show. All right.
To differentiate from other Joe and Joe shows, which are also on the web.
They just proliferating everywhere. They're multiplying like head lice, for God's sake.
Exactly.
So, looking at this pattern, and I'm just kind of thinking back over the years, this happens in June. This is not something that is that extraordinary. We do have a rather cool pattern aloft, Joe, and that has created this pretty unstable atmosphere today. We've got some showers that popped up. There's some heavier showers and thunderstorms moving across parts of central Jersey right now, and also down into southern PA and northern Maryland. But you got this real cold pool aloft, not a big shock. And
I actually drove into one of those showers. When I left this afternoon around 1 o'clock to head to work, I'll call it partly sunny skies, and as I headed down the Taconic Parkway, skies began to get rather dark, and sometime, just before I hit 287, bing, the first raindrops, which came into more of a steadier intensity by the time I got off of 287. It was in fact raining pretty hard. So, depending upon where you were, it ranged anywhere from, I guess, light rain to maybe some hard showers, but they're all gone right now, pretty much. And
yeah, at least up our way. Yeah. I put the U.S. satellite loop here, full size. In eastern Canada and in northwestern New England, you've got this big upper low that is sitting there, and that's just kind of churning away. It's very cold air aloft, and it's doing a couple of things other than making the atmosphere unstable. It's also keeping things nice and rather refreshing out there. I went outside a little while ago, and I thought to myself, let me remember this for those days in August when we're, in the humidity and it's miserable, that the kind of weather that we're having now will once again reappear at some point. Because it really is nice out. I'm kind of enjoying it.
You know what I'm enjoying? I'm watching here. This is the new GOES 16, correct?
Right, yes.
And so what we're looking at here is, look at the transition. You can actually see the lights at night, on the land.
Yes.
Those little globules there of brightness. Those are actual cities, and we really couldn't do that with the old GOES satellite, could we?
No, it really is amazing. The detail, and when we get these thunderstorms, when we go close up, and you can see the different layers of the clouds. It really is quite the tool. And as the sun sets, you can see the clouds also blowing up back out through the plain states as they're getting some thunderstorms there.
This is almost like the meteorological version of the old soap opera, The Edge of Night.
Yes, exactly.
Dun 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 dun.
Yeah. That show ran forever.
Yes, it did.
All right. So, by the way, I'm going to bring up the Pacific tropics because we do have a system. These Pacific systems usually are fish storms, but this will probably be the first tropical storm in the season. If you look in the lower right, there is a disturbed weather there that's getting better organized, and the Hurricane Center in their latest discussion said there is a 100% chance of this becoming a tropical depression or a tropical storm over the next couple of days. And in fact, they expect to upgrade this to a depression sometime tonight.
Right.
But I'm just pointing it out that this is what happened. This is we're kind of doing things the way they're supposed to happen. We are getting the Pacific is revving up a little bit, which is what you would expect during the month of June.
Right.
We're actually ahead of the game because we already had Alberto back last week. The Atlantic is quiet and remains quiet.
And it may remain quieter than the original forecast. So we were touching last night about the fact that a broad swath of the Atlantic Ocean is rather coolish and that may help to preclude, at least initially, significant storm activity. So especially cool off of Africa, where we see a lot of these waves develop and work their way across the Atlantic and eventually become sizable storms. But that doesn't really happen until the middle or latter part of August or September.
Well,
anyway.
This is the actual sea surface temperature map. And, there's been stuff written about the fact that the Gulf Stream out in the central Atlantic has basically collapsed. It has ceased to function out in the north central Atlantic. And when you look at the profile, Joe, of the water temperatures, these are not the anomalies; these are the actual water temperatures.
Right.
You can see you can see the warm water that comes up off North Carolina and then turns eastward off the Carolina coast and runs east-northeast from there. But then it's gone.
Right.
It's just gone.
Right.
And I'm gonna find. Let me see where it is, because I have it here somewhere. And in fact, here's a. Let me get rid of this map, if I can. I'm gonna have to start this fresh. So give me 1 second here. But I'm gonna pull up the actual anomalies in the Atlantic, because this was quite telling. I showed this the other day, but I want to get. Okay, this is.
That's the map we were showing yesterday.
Yeah, I want to find a better shot though. Just get. Let me see if I can get the full global shot. That's the shot I want. And copy. Okay, excellent. I got the shot I wanted, Joseph. Mm-hmm. All right, so there you have it. And what's really interesting is look at the below, where the blue is. That's all below average temperatures. Now, a good chunk of the North Atlantic, from Newfoundland all the way along the coast of Greenland to Iceland, is below, and actually even significantly below average. But look at where the below average temperatures run down along the west coast of Europe, off of the coast of Spain, and all off the African coast, and then throughout all of the tropical and subtropical Atlantic. And this is water that's bleeding down from the North Atlantic southward.
Right.
There's been the discussion about the fact of the decreasing salinity of the water up off of Greenland, and that is allowing this colder water to develop, and it's funneling down into the tropics. That may have some impact on tropical storm development if that holds into August and September.
And, I think with the Hurricane Center, well, not the Hurricane Center, the folks over at Colorado State, which make their annual forecasts, and they, just before the season officially began on June 1st, they lowered everything by one less hurricane, one less major hurricane or whatever, all due to this colder water. But, I really don't think they have any clue. They're doing it as a function of, well, let's just say that we did reduce it to a degree. But really, who can say how?
Well, I agree with you. You can only. I mean, I don't even necessarily want to call it a guess. You're kind of working with statistics and numbers, so you figure, okay, if the 13 is average, so you go for 14, or you go for 12. It's about normal. It doesn't tell you anything, because it doesn't tell you when those storms are going to form, how do they form, where do they go, what is the upper air going to be like. We both know that if it could be in a below average season, but if you get a storm to form in the wrong spot, you could wind up with a problem and a landfall, and a serious landfall. It doesn't mean you can't have one major hurricane hit land. It just gives you this incredibly broad brush view. I don't even know that it's that useful for a forecast. I don't know what you can do with it.
The devastating Hurricane Andrew, which was the A storm and didn't really appear until almost the end of August. And by that time, everybody was saying, where are all the storms? Where are all the hurricanes? It really wasn't all that active a season, but as you just alluded to, all you need is one big storm, and that was like a buzzsaw that cut across Florida into the Gulf of Mexico and then made landfall in the Gulf, along the Gulf Coast. All you need is one. It doesn't matter how many storms you got.
You're absolutely correct. Let's look ahead to the rest of the week, because which Tuesday, so I know folks are already thinking about the weekend, especially in the summertime. You start to think about the weekend on Sunday when the weekend you're in is ending.
On the weekend, when your weekend is closing, you say, all right, what is it going to... If people gather around the TV and they wait for the Sunday evening news to watch the weather person, whoever that may be, talking about now that we have 7-day forecasts, they're looking ahead already out to next weekend.
I know. One of the things, Joe, I noticed, I was looking at the upper air. For some reason, I am not having good luck lately. I got to readjust the size of this because I'm not able to get that region that I want. But I'm going to use the North Atlantic.
We spent like 5 minutes looking for that region last night.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the North Atlantic. So we're not going to see what's going on off the west coast. So we've got this deep trough that's along the east coast. You've got an upper low that's sitting off the south coast of Greenland. That trough is going to lift out some, but right back in comes more of that energy that's in east of Newfoundland kind of rotates around. So we get a bit of a break, and we'll probably warm up going into Friday and into Saturday, and then you're going to have another trough that's going to dig down along the east coast. So this is going to bring another shot of cool air during Sunday, and into the first part of next week. Right. The question is, what do we do in the transition with that on Saturday, when the weather front begins to approach?
A friend of mine who lives up in Lewiston, Maine, said that the local television weathercaster said it was either on Sunday or yesterday that it was an all-time record, I think, for Portland, Maine, or maybe it was Augusta, Maine, the all-time lowest high temperature ever recorded in the month of June, 46 degrees.
Yeah, that's cold.
That's the high temperature, not the low temperature. That was the high temperature. And of course, you mentioned yesterday, Gander, Newfoundland, 18 inches of snow over this past weekend.
Yeah, and I was looking at the GFS in this forecast period, and it's still producing a few pockets up there going into next week with this next deep trough that forms out in eastern Canada. This is tomorrow. We got another. As this upper trough in the east starts to pull out, there's probably one more spoke that has to come around. So I'm thinking some clouds and maybe a brief shower, but it shouldn't be anything too serious.
Well, if you see the sun tomorrow, it's going to have to come probably when many of our viewers are either on the road heading for work or school, because by lunchtime, that sun pretty much is probably going to be gone, and there's going to be a lot of cloud cover. And again, that's all due to that cool pool of air, that instability that generates, with the warming of the sun, generates those clouds.
Right.
Self-destruct sunshine. That's what it all is.
Thursday looks okay to me. Friday will start to warm up a little bit, so that should be okay. Now, here comes that next frontal boundary for Saturday. What do you think about Saturday? I'm kind of leaning to the idea that I know that the model does have some a little bit of wet weather here early in the day, but I'm wondering whether it'll just be a little noise early, and that really it'll come later in the afternoon, or maybe Saturday evening, that we'll get into some showers and thunderstorms.
Yeah, this early on, it's still 4 days away or whatever. Saturday, originally I was going to keep precipitation out of the forecast, and I might have kept the precipitation out completely were it not for the fact that Saturday is the day here in the tri-state area in Queens. At Belmont Park for the...
technically in Nassau.
And technically in Nassau County, yes.
Right.
Belmont and Elmont, and,
right.
too many months.
Yes.
But it's going to be a big day for racing fans as they see whether or not the third jewel of the Triple Crown will be. And also, I just realized also, the Subway Series, the Mets and the Yankees are playing this weekend. So a lot of things are happening on Saturday. And for that reason, I'm just
Where are they playing that?
They'll be at Citi Field for this.
All right, so that basically means you stay off the roads.
Yeah, that's right. Between the Belmont, but the game is at 7:00. But the Belmont is what, 6:45?
6:40, I believe, is post time.
So don't be on the roads either in Queens or Nassau County between 6:30 and 7:00.
What do you think about Sunday? Because some of the models were pushing it out for Sunday. The European actually would argue that Sunday will be dry. The GFS kind of hangs on to this wave a little bit.
The European went whole hog on Saturday.
Right.
I mean, they went crazy with the Saturday precipitation. They had it raining here or showering here by midday on Saturday, and they had a big blob of looked like moderate rainfall for the afternoon and evening hours. The GFS, as you just alluded to, was kind of pulling back on that a bit.
Yeah.
Although they did suggest that there might be some thunder activity later in the day on Saturday. But right now, I just mentioned some sun, some clouds, a chance for late day thunderstorm activity. And if the European is correct, yeah, we get quite a bit of wet weather, let's say, for Saturday. But as you just alluded to, it all pushes out Saturday night late, and Sunday could be, if you believe the European,
might be like last Sunday, except that maybe the dry air filters down a bit more. Eventually, though, that cool high, Joe, early next week really comes down, and we'll start off next week with the dry weather, if this is correct, as long as the marine flow isn't anything too serious, and we'll have some decent weather and on the cool side through the first part of next week.
Right.
And I was looking at the long term just really quick. I didn't really see anything that would suggest, we'll have the odd day here and there where it might get very warm, but I don't see any prolonged period of very warm to hot weather, at least through mid-month.
And before we even started here tonight, I had told you at least one person on Facebook that has already been talking about the next potential tropical threat in the Gulf of Mexico, but
right.
He's been talking about this now for the last week, actually showing maps, showing the storm coming up along the eastern seaboard, and how anybody could do that. I mean, you know that after 5 or 6 days, these forecast guidance models, not the actual what's going to happen, the guidance models start really falling apart after 5, 6, 7 days.
Let me just, by the way, just as a point, because somebody brought it up, we were talking about the fact of this whole thing with the Gulf Stream. I have to still do a little bit of research. Actually, I do have to do a lot of bit of research on it. So, I want to try to understand it a bit more. And as far as any kind of implications of what that may mean in the long term, I don't know. Who knows? That is just, I think that's for bigger brains than me. And I'm going to wait to see what I see written about it up. Maybe I can find something a bit technical so I can, get my teeth into it. But there really isn't anything that any kind of conclusion we can make from this. It's an interesting phenomena that's occurred. Let's see let's see where we are a month from now, 2 months from now, and what's transpired since then. And then you got this volcano. The Fuego volcano, and that's erupting, so that may or may not play a role if the ash goes all the way up in the atmosphere. We'll see.
In fact, late last night, there's something called ProQuest. Some libraries have this. Unfortunately, the library I deal with has it, where you can actually go online and look back at actual newspaper articles of many newspapers across the country, and doing a little bit of research. The last time Fuego erupted to this magnitude was in October, November of 1974, and within a couple of months thereafter, everybody was marveling at the spectacular sunrises and sunsets,
right,
because of the aerosol cloud and the reflection of sunlight as the sun is coming up or going down, creating this magnificent oranges and yellows and pink. And so maybe you want to look at a good thing coming out of this volcanic eruption is that maybe as we move on toward the middle and latter part of the summer, once the ash and aerosol activity spreads across a large part of the northern hemisphere, we might be able to see some beautiful sunrises and sunsets because of the ash in the atmosphere.
Raymond Goldbolt, who's a regular on my YouTube live streams, has joined us tonight on Facebook. My cold is better, Raymond. I'm making progress. And I got to say hi to Dan Ribicoff. Dan is on the Steve Wilkos show. Okay. He is he gives the lie detector tests on the Steve Wilkos show.
Wow!
So I want to say a big hi to you, Dan.
Is he any relation? There was some politician with the last name Ribicoff.
I don't know. Have to ask him. I'll ask him.
Are you any relation to a politician, Dan?
If he's still on. But a good man. Maybe this summer, Dan, you, me, Phil, fishing. Okay, can we do that?
Relative to your thing about the not the jet stream, the ocean currents, and the research that goes into that, would you say that this is the summertime version of the wintertime analysis of snow over Asia, trying to use that as a tool to try to forecast what?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's probably the same idea. But there's so little known. We're seeing something here that we haven't seen.
Right.
I mean, this was something that actually you talked about Colorado State. Dr. Bill Gray talked about this many years ago,
right,
and he had predicted that the Gulf Stream was going to eventually collapse. And the thing is, he was actually ridiculed for that, and he was wrong. The part that he was wrong on, that he was too early.
Right.
Because I think he said it was going to happen probably around 2010 or 2011, and instead it's happening now. So, but it is happening. We'll have to, again, it's basically one of the things, Joe, you would agree with this. One of the things that with respect to weather is, in a lot of ways, you actually just have to sort of sit there and watch it unfold.
Right.
It's not, you don't always have the past experience to fall back on every single thing. Even as for the many years that you and I have been doing it combined, we still find new things that we haven't seen before.
Right.
So maybe this is what this is.
It's just like with the sports writers. They go to a baseball game, then one sports writer says, "I come to a game every day knowing that there might be something I've never seen happen." Grizzled old veterans, 30 and 40 years in the business. The same thing with you and I. We've seen patterns, things that on the weather maps that we've never seen before, and have no idea or no clue. We're trying to figure out in our minds, like a mental analog. What does this fit? What does this look like in our past? And sometimes it just doesn't work. It's kind of amazing.
Joseph Alloy, thanks for fixing my air conditioner.
Oh,
for
congratulations!
sending Alex over Comfort Air. Fixed my AC. It wasn't a huge deal. I had four cracks in my draining pipe in the attic in 4 different spots, and Phil and I were only able to find 1 crack. Alex found 4, and thank you for sending him. So I just wanted to say thanks and give you a plug.
Unlike yours truly, where he has central air and the big fan that's outside, the big unit that's outside, they pulled it apart, they looked at it, and they found that one of the coils that allows the Freon gas to go through had a leak in it. But when they looked at it, they also said, we can't repair this because it's an aluminum coil, not a copper coil, and they just cannot swap out aluminum. So the whole thing had to go. The whole thing was kaputz.
Yes.
And don't need to ask.
At least it didn't happen when it was 100 out, so that's good.
God.
All right, coming up on quarter after. Usually we
Have you noticed, by the way, since I got that fixed a week ago Monday. Since I did that, notice how all the heat and humidity that's built up over us over the last couple of weeks.
It's a perfect coincidence, and you know it. You better hope it is. Okay, so we usually have been starting our live streams at 9:15, but because of some schedule changes going on, we had to do it. We've been doing them earlier, and we're likely to do them early. We're going to do them early all this week. So look for them to start probably around 8:45, 8:50 instead of the usual 9:15. So just make a note of that. And in the meantime, speaking of which, I have to go because I got to do FiOS 1 News Long Island and FiOS 1 News New Jersey. And
I will have to do FiOS 1 News, FiOS 1 News Lower Hudson Valley. And I want to, forget about it.
Okay. You're having one of my moments with you. The brain synapse just kind of goes. Zzz. Yep. All right. Have a great evening, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you later.